I talk to a lot of founders, and one question I've been getting a ton recently is, Pat, do you think my startup should be on YouTube right now? And if that's you, this video is for you because YouTube can absolutely accelerate your growth, but only if you don't skip the basics I'm about to walk you through in this video. And by the end, you'll know whether YouTube makes sense for your startup right now, or if you should hold off. Before we begin, my name is Pat. I'm the co-founder of GrowthLens, where we help businesses just like yours use long-form content to support growth and sales. Now, the reason so many founders end up wasting months on getting YouTube to work starts with asking the wrong questions. Questions like, what camera do we need for best quality videos? Do we need a script, or can we just talk? Should these be talking head videos or screen recordings? How often should we upload? And I get why. You see your competitors launching their channels and you think you're falling behind if you're not doing the same. But asking these questions, you're assuming YouTube works like a switch, something you can turn on and growth just shows up, which is not true. From what I've seen helping B2B businesses and VC-funded startups grow on YouTube, this platform isn't a standalone growth hack. It does not fix unclear positioning. In fact, it amplifies it. So if the goal of your business isn't super clear, you're only broadcasting confusion to a bigger audience. And I'll explain this in depth in the next two sections. But the baseline is, instead of thinking about cameras, scripts, and thumbnails, you should be confirming product market fit with questions like, do you know exactly what problem you're solving? Do you know who precisely needs your product or service? Do you know the pain points of your target audience? Do you have proof of work and case studies to show? If not, you have some homework to do before you start thinking about YouTube. And that's exactly the reason why YouTube fails for most startups. Let me tell you what I see happening most of the time. A startup raises money, hires a marketer, and decides they need content. So they start a branded YouTube channel. But at that point, they're still figuring things out inside the business. Their offer is changing, the ICP is changing, the messaging isn't clear. So every video ends up saying something slightly different, which not only confuses the audience, but importantly confuses the YouTube algorithm too. That's why the channel doesn't grow and the videos just don't convert. And months later, the founder reaches the conclusion that YouTube just doesn't work. But if you think about it, the problem wasn't YouTube, it was timing. They started creating content way before they understood product market fit or even had a super clear ICP. But don't worry, because understanding when YouTube is a distraction versus a multiplier is not that hard. Simply put, if your sales calls sound different every time, YouTube would be a distraction for you right now, because you'll end up making content that doesn't align with what you're actually selling 3 months from now. However, once you notice patterns, YouTube starts becoming a piece of leverage. Let me explain what I mean by that. Patterns are when the same questions come up on every sales call. And if you're a founder, you know exactly what that means. That repetition is what tells us YouTube is the next logical step for your startup, which takes me to my next and very important point: how YouTube shifts from content to sales enablement. The ideal stage to start YouTube is when your sales process is already in place, but doesn't scale that well. At this stage, YouTube isn't about reach or views. It becomes part of your sales engine. Instead of explaining the same things on every call, YouTube does that work up front. Prospects watch your video before they even talk to you. They understand what you do, they understand who it's for, and they already know how you think. So when they show up to a call, it's different. You're not starting from zero anymore. You're not convincing them that what you do matters. You're learning about the unique needs of their world and business. You're collaboratively working towards a solution. This is the shift most founders notice. Sales calls get shorter. The quality of inbounds improves. That's when YouTube stops being content you post and starts being a tool that actually supports sales. And once that happens, it starts replacing things you rely on, like the sales deck. Let me explain how YouTube outperforms decks and sales calls. Let's talk about the traditional way most B2B companies try to build trust. They send a deck, maybe a case study, then they get on a call and explain everything from scratch. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work, but it's just not enough because decks explain features and case studies show results, but neither of them build familiarity. And familiarity is what actually creates trust. I actually made a video on this where I explain how long-form content builds trust for your business. You can watch it next. When someone watches a human explain a concept, break down how they think, or walk through a real example, they're not just learning what you say, they're also getting familiar with you. They see how you approach problems. They decide if your thinking matches theirs. By the end of a good video, it feels like they already know you. A PDF cannot do this. We see this all the time with teams we work with. The prospect shows up warmer, they've already adopted your belief system, they skip the basic questions and get right to the meat of working together. You explain something once and it works for tens or hundreds of prospects without adding more calls to your calendar that end with, "I'll let you know." So instead of repeating the same pitch, you let the video do the heavy lifting. That's the leverage YouTube gives you. But this only works if you start YouTube at the right stage with a plan. And that's where most founders go wrong. The cost of starting too early or too late. They know YouTube can work. They hear it all the time from their competitors, but they just don't know when it works. If they start too early, their message keeps changing, leaving the audience confused, and they spend months making content that just doesn't match what they sell. As a result, they don't just lose views, they lose time, money, and focus too. But waiting too long has a cost as well. Your competitors become the familiar ones. They set the narrative. They build trust while you keep explaining everything on calls. So the goal isn't to rush YouTube, and it's not to avoid it either. The goal is to time it right. When your message is clear, when you can explain your ideal customer in one sentence, when the same questions keep coming up, that's when YouTube starts becoming an asset and growth compounds. If you get it wrong, it quietly drains months before you notice. So before you start or before you give up on it, be honest about where your business is actually standing right now. That decision matters more than the platform itself. All right, so it all comes down to two things. One, where is your business standing right now? And two, what is your goal on YouTube? And do these align with each other? If yes, YouTube is your next move. If not, fix that first. Now, if you're already on YouTube but not getting the results you want, I made a video on how boring businesses make more money, even with fewer views. I'll link it in the description and I'll see you on the next one.